Hey moms and dads, this is Dr. Scott Haggerty with Elite Family Chiropractic here in North Royalton, Ohio. Hey, is your kid's ADHD on overdrive right now? Moms and dads, we've heard this story so many times from so many different parents. I decided it was time that we sit down and have a conversation about why this is happening and what you can do to help your children right away. So first, a couple of things here. So when I made my notes for talking about this, there was a few things I thought it was important that you understood, right? There's a definite why behind this. And I've had this conversation countless times. So when you think about why kids who have ADHD are having increased symptoms right now, there's a number of different reasons. There's increased stress from homeschool, virtual school, changes in the school environment, restrictions the kids are under, and transitioning into brand new routines. What we may not realize, because we're not obviously in this environment, having not gone through this, the stress level for our kids is so much higher than what they have ever been under before. I mean, I can tell you, we saw this with our own kids, right? So, my daughter is why we do all this. She's had a lot of history. When we became pediatric chiropractors, it was very much because she was having a lot of issues with anxiety, with stress, with a lot of behavioral issues, stimming, focus and attention. It was a lot of challenges. And in our journey to try and find ways to help her, we didn't know what to do. We didn't know what was causing it. So for us, finding out these pieces was really, really critical for us to being able to help her. So I'd like to fill in a few pieces for you of what we learned that then in turn allowed us to help our daughter and now has enabled us to help hundreds of kids here in the Cleveland area. So let me go through with you a couple of things that I think that are really important that you need to know. Number one, signs. When we see kids are having increases in ADHD symptoms, there's also other things we typically tend to see. Number one, obviously the hyperactivity component. But two, we tend to see things like shorter fuses, being more emotional. If a kid is prone to aggression, we tend to see increases in the aggression. Decreased focus, trouble sleeping, and anxiety all can be signs and symptoms that they're dealing with. Let's talk about what's causing it, because that's really, really important to the equation. So when we talk about what's causing it, right? The brain has an operating system. So you've got the brain above that runs the body through this thing that's called the autonomic nervous system. It has two primary operating systems. One is parasympathetic, rest and digest, and two is sympathetic fight or flight mode. Those two systems have a very particular, very balanced relationship they're supposed to work within. We should be able to respond to stress when necessary, but not get stuck, and spend the vast majority of our time in a relaxed state, growth, development, healing, cognitive development, and function. When that relationship works the way that it's supposed to, awesome. Our nervous system's calm, we do well, good behavior, good in school, all of those things. The problem is that we oftentimes overlook the component that stressors can start to overwhelm us and our kids, right? And stress is a big word, so let me break that down for a second for you. Oftentimes we think of stress and we think bad things, but stress isn't just the bad stuff, right? Stress is a combination of chemical and physical and emotional stressors that can sap our adaptability to stress, right? Because adaptability, if you've never heard that term before, right? Adaptability literally is the way the nervous system works. We're constantly adapting to the world around us. And if the nervous system can't adapt to stress, then we see an increase in stress signs as our adaptability to stress goes down. So stress signs, right? Hyperactivity, seeking stimulation, increased need for consolation, more difficulty focusing, more difficulty regulating our emotions. All of these things are signs of the brain having a trouble with being able to regulate our stress response. So what ends up happening is that when the nervous system gets stressed, right? And a child who has ADHD already has a nervous system that's stuck on stress mode, but the brain can be sensitized, right? The word sensitized means we can increase the ability of the brain to respond to stress when it's already wired into stress. And because the brain is neuroplastic, it can rewire and refire and get even better at being stressed out, right? Bad thing in this scenario, right? Good when we can undo it, but really bad when the child's nervous system is already there. And so, many parents have talked about, well, we've done these things in the past and we've tried meds or we've tried, these different therapies or we've tried these different, different remedies that are natural remedies and they're not seeming to work. Well, let's dive into why that might be. We have to look at it. There's more stress in the school environment than the kids have had in the past. There's been the changes in their social structure, interactions with their teachers and their peers. Even the way they do recess is different right now in these COVID times. There's a new layer of stress that they have never experienced before. And honestly, moms and dads, neither have we, right? I mean, think about yourselves. How many of you as parents are more stressed out than what you have ever been? So here's how to help. Number one, you have to turn on the brakes for the nervous system to be able to calm down. So one of the things that we talk about here constantly, and I want you to understand that getting adjusted is one of the, if not the most powerful ways to calm down the nervous system. And there's a couple of reasons why. And if you've never heard this before, getting adjusted stimulates the parasympathetic rest digest side of the nervous system. There is a nerve that comes off the brainstem. It's called the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve extends off the brainstem all the way down into every major organ, gland, and system in the body. 85% of its job is monitoring what's happening within the body, but it also is what activates our parasympathetic nervous system and the part of the brain called the cortex that controls organization of our thoughts. It controls all input from the sensory systems. It's what controls who we are as people. If we are not having good focus and attention, we do not have a high functioning cortex. If we're not having a good stress response, our cortex isn't staying on. It's not analyzing the way that we respond to stress the way that we're supposed to. So all of these signs, all of these things are showing that the part of the brain called the amygdala, the stress and anxiety center, is overactive and we need to turn it down, right? And turning it down comes from turning on the vagus nerve. It's an on-off relationship because the brain can't be and the nervous system can't be in growth and protection at the same time. So we've got to get the brain back into growth mode. So what this does is it sends the signals up to the brain, turns on the parasympathetic nervous system, and as a result, then what we see is over time, we see that a child's nervous system is able to respond to stress better. We see that the child becomes calmer. We see they're sleeping better, and we see their focus begins to improve. And over time, it gets better and better and better and better. I gotta be honest with you, we went through this. Like our daughter, who had been doing great for a number of years, we saw her have a backslide with the transition into this new school, from going from spring with the changes in school, which were really rough and stressful and challenging, to then going into summer, which is relatively smooth, and trying to get into a new routine with doing homeschool, we saw an increase in her stress response. And so we had to make adaptations to her care plan. So I had to increase her the level of adjusting that she was getting because she needed more stimulation to calm her nervous system because she was struggling. But what's happened is in a very short period of time, we got her back on track, calmed her down, which is the same thing that we see with the kids here, right? When kids come in, they go through higher periods of care where, if kids are on wellness care, we maybe had to boost some of the kids. But kids who come in, we'll adjust them several times per week until we see on our scans that their nervous system is calmed down and symptomatically that things are getting better. And then once everything is stable, we can start working them down in care. That's how care works. It's different, right? It's different than if you've been in other kinds of therapies. It's different than what you've seen in the past because it's a different way of doing things. A lot of things are outside in therapies. This is, we're getting right to the cause. We're getting right to the best, most powerful way to go and stimulate the brain and the nervous system to get it to change. A few other things that you can also use, and these are some things that we found to be very successful, both with our own kids, but also with patients. So one of the big things is if your children aren't taking magnesium, magnesium is a natural relaxant for the nervous system. So I would definitely recommend getting your kids on a magnesium dosage. Talk to your healthcare provider, your chiropractor, or drop questions for us. We're more than happy to give you some counsel. But obviously, if you're not patients of ours, we can't give you healthcare advice. If you have more questions you would like to talk to us specifically about, send us a message and we can talk more. CBD oil. So CBD oil has been found to be a calmer of the nervous system by using a thing called the endocannabinoid pathway to stimulate the parasympathetic nervous system. We talk about obviously like THC and cannabis, and they're very different in the way that they work. THC is the drug effect. Cannabis is a substance that CBD oil, cannabidiol oil, is a natural calmer of the nervous system. So we've had some kids where they needed to kind of get over the hump, where they've used CBD oil as a way to try and help them with this increase in stress to be able to deal a little bit more effectively. Other things that we tend to recommend are things like exercise, right? If your kids aren't on a regular exercise regimen, get them on one. It can be doing things like yoga, or it can be dance, it can be doing Ninja Warrior and rock climbing, whatever it might be. Have a consistent exercise routine. When a child is in stress mode, they're putting out more adrenaline and more cortisol than necessary. So we need to get those levels washed out of their body. Easiest way to do that is through exercise. So go through and have them get into a regular exercise regimen. It's not the fix, but it will definitely help with the symptoms. Additionally, there's a thing that I utilize with my own family, I use myself, called BrainTab. It is an app that you can utilize right on your iPhone, and it's a great tool because it has apps on there that help to calm the brain. It uses guided visualization, binaural beats, and isochronic tones. So what they essentially help the brain to do by visualization is talk a way through to be calmer, but the binaural beats and isochronic tones actually help the brain to integrate the right side and the left side to get it back into balance, and it helps it to down cycle through the stress response. If you have questions about that, more than happy to help. Hope this video was helpful. If you have more questions, go to elitefamilychiros.com and let us know what your questions are. You can also drop comments beneath. If you want to have your child evaluated to see if we can help, don't hesitate to contact us. Right now, we're running a $47 new patient evaluation special. So mention that you heard here about the $47 voucher, and my staff will go ahead and get you set up for an appointment as soon as possible, okay? Look forward to seeing you guys. God bless you guys. Be elite.